Hello and welcome back to GoodKnitKisses. I'm your host Kristen, and today I wanted to present you with a new loom on the market. It's March 2012 and we have an adjustable loom on the market from Knitting Board, or the Authentic Knitting Board. You can go to knittingboard.com, called the All-in-One Loom. This is an adjustable loom. It's a small gauge. It's just a tiny bit bigger than the sock loom in the gauge. And I'm going to show it to you right here, and we'll get down to the nitty-gritty on all the details. Are you ready? Alright, so this is the all-in-one loom. You'll see that it has the classic knitting board style, the really beautiful hardwood frame. It's nice and finished. It's smooth to the touch. And this is adjustable. Now you notice that there's some holes here. And those are great. But this is not the predetermined sizing, because if you see, yes, it looks like I have it near the bolt, but what they've done is you take your bolt here and you loosen it, and then you slide this slider back up and down this groove, if you can see the groove. Okay, so this is actually the way, this pattern is from Isela Phelps, and she's written a couple of the patterns that are in the book, and then this is one that's actually on her blog right now. It's not in the instruction booklet, but if you notice, this is 80 stitches. This is a women's hat, and the bolt actually is prohibited from being used right now. So I have it, what you want to do is when you get it to the slider to where you want it, you put the bolt into the closest hole to make sure it's snug as possible. Now don't over tighten it. Well, the pegs are set at 3/8 apart from each other, but if you want to know the gauge, it's actually 5 stitches per inch and 9 rows per inch. So that'll give you a better idea. You want to use worsted weight yarn. So everyone, if you are ready to use your number 4 medium weight yarn, worsted weight, go for it. 1 strand, you don't need it. So if you're used to those larger gauge looms, ask no more. This is going to be what you want. I do want to add that it is recommended that you use worsted weight yarn when working in the round. So if you are going to do socks, you might not want to do the sock yarn. But if you're working double knitting, single knitting, flat knitting, it's fine. You can use any weight yarn. So go ahead and play and experiment, but just recommending that the worsted weight is what is recommended for in the round. Up here. So you can knit this in the round. You can knit it in double knitting. You can remove these here, this slider peg, which has got, it's got 5 pegs on it, and then this piece here. So you remove your bolts, then you put in the 2 spacers that are included, these right here, and if you notice there's slots for the different holes. You can use this setting, which gives you this thickness here. You're going to have a 1 cm, and then you're going to have the 2 cm, which is this width here, and you're going to use these end bolts, and then you want 3 cm, and then you can have the biggest width. So what that is you put your spacer in here with the shorter bolts that are included, and you can squeeze this down. Let's give you a visual. So I wanted to show you what the 28-inch long Authentic Knitting Board looks like. So this is it right here. I'm kind of angling it to get in the shot. So here is your knitting board here, and I wanted you to see what the spacers look like on here. You can do a double knit. Here it is again with some knitting on it, but in the 10-inch version. See, here's your 10-inch. And pay no mind this, it's just my waist yarn here. This is actually being used with a number 3 lightweight yarn, but this is the same. So it's almost like getting, this is just so large and it's hard to kind of just put in your knitting bag, and the 10-inch is really great for that. But the all-in-one is actually not much bigger, and if you have a large tote like I do, you can slip this in very easily. It's almost like getting 3 of these in here, like 2.5, 3 of them. So because where the needles hit. So you can get a lot of knitting done, a lot of variety of projects. You can go all the way down to little baby booties, or you could even do like a big shawl and do a flat panel and go all the way around and don't connect everything. Here is a little soap bag that I made on it. This is a revised pattern of mine, and I've made it to fit on the loom. So this is a fine gauge well, it's a small gauge of what I used on here. You can do this for like a little sachet bag, or I've used it for soap. And this was in a cotton, this is actually in a number 4 weight cotton. So that's what that's going to look like. And then I've stretched that out with this soap. Another thing to note is that this loom is 18 inches and is only 1.5 pounds, so it's lightweight. If you want to see it compared to the sock loom, I'll show you what that looks like. So here's the all-in-one, and here is the sock loom. So if you notice the similarities, the sock loom also has the wing nut to tighten and loosen, and then you can slide your slider up and down to make bigger or smaller socks. Same thing with this one, but you can see that you can make much bigger project, and this one was limited. But what they did is they listened to all the customers and decided to make it to where these are removable, and then you can have the spacers, and then of course it's larger. So you can have a nice large knitting board. I would say this is kind of a medium size, but it's perfect for packing away and taking with you. But the best part about this is the nylon pegs, because if you're familiar with using the sock loom, they can slip off a little bit more. These are metal pegs. You have a groove. I'm going to get close as I can. You've got a groove here. Here is your groove here, and you knit over, and it's got a little bit of a bump here. Now, when I look at it compared to the all-in-one, okay, I've got a similar looking peg here, and it's got the nice groove in it, but this is nylon, and your yarn is going to slip over this very nicely, and then with this extra little lip on here, this bump out, it catches the yarn without letting it slip off. So this is really easy to handle. I find that I really, really like this. The sock loom, I did like it, but it had its limitations, and the metal I didn't really agree with much. I didn't enjoy using it as much as this one. Really enjoying this. I think you will too. Now, here's some of the basics about the loom. The loom has the nice sturdy wood base, your nylon pegs with the groove, and then the little cap on the top to prevent the yarn from slipping over. Also, you are going to have the extra bolts to make it smaller. You'll have the 2 spacers that you can have 3 different settings going from 1 cm to 2 to 3. And then you have got 48 pegs on each side of the loom, making 96 when you're doing double knitting. So 48 across, so 48 plus 48 is 96. Plus then you have the 2 end pegs, the sliders, that add another 10. So you're going to have 5 and 5. So there's 106 pegs on the entire loom if you use it as knitting in the round. So you could use a flat panel and not connect the round, and then it opens way up, or you could use a double knitting and you could go 48 wide and then make a nice thick double knit with a stockinette stitch, kind of like on this 10-inch loom. And here's a double knit on the 10-inch, but you can do a double knit on here. Also, you can do baby booties, your socks, all that kind of stuff. The main part is you want to use a worsted weight yarn. Now you can use bigger yarns too, but you can use the number 4 worsted weight yarns. And for many people who use the large gauge looms, the main thing to remember is you don't have to use the bulky or the super bulky. You can use just 1 strand of yarn. And the other thing is you don't have to worry about it being too open of a weave with one as well. Now when you're doing double knit, if you want to use the bigger spacers, you can get more of an open weave. You also want to remember, if you're used to larger gauge looms, that this is going to have twice or even 3 times as many stitches as you're used to as your other loom. Now you want to make sure of the width around the person's head that you're going to make. Let's say you're making for a hat or something like that. It's going to be a small gauge, not a large gauge. So your projects are going to go a little bit slower. If you're used to doing it a certain amount of time, you're going to have to wrap twice as many pegs. For instance, this hat is going to be 80 pegs or 80 stitches all the way around. If I was using a mass market large gauge loom, then that might have anywhere from 36 pegs to 40, 48 pegs. So you are going to have twice as many to wrap around, but you're going to only need 1 strand of yarn. And so it's going to last you longer. You've got a lot of possibilities with this loom. I'm very excited about it. I think it's high quality, and they have got great customer service and a wonderful website. Also remember that there are lots of teaching videos online. I'll also be making a video on how to adjust your loom rather than included in this review here, so that you can just refer to that later on. I hope that this review was helpful for you for the all-in-one loom. Again, these opinions expressed are my own, and this is just my take on the loom and coupled with some of the basic information. You can check out my blog later. I'll be leaving some more information and answering questions there. Also, a great blog to check out is one for Isela Phelps at loomknit.com, so be sure and check hers out. She and I both will be making loom knit patterns, as well as I'm sure many of the people in the loom knitting community. Thanks again for joining me at Good Knit Kisses, and happy looming! Okay, so as a bonus to my review, as always, I wanted to put a little tutorial in here. So what it is it's for my little sachet, my little soap bag here, and how to do the loose bind off here, but I'm actually doing it on the loom over here. Now it is the basic bind off, but I've made it more of a stretchy bind off. It's not the super stretchy bind off you've seen in another video from someone else, but I call it my super stretchy or my loose bind off instead of the basic bind off. What it does is it allows this to be stretchier, okay? And then that way it's not so tight, and then when you do a drawstring, it's got this nice loose edge to it. So I hope you enjoy it, and thanks for watching again at Good Knit Kisses. I'm going to show you my super stretchy bind off, and this way you don't have to work your working yarn all the way around or cut it off. You can do it right on the loom. Instead of the basic bind off, we're going to add some extra wraps. We're going to take where our working yarn is coming out of this peg here, and you can go in either direction. I'm going to wrap this peg here and knit over. And I'm knitting a little strange in this angle just because I want you to be able to see this side. And then we're going to knit the next peg. So we knit the number 1 peg and then the number 2 peg to start us off. Knit over, move the number 2 to number 1, and we're going to knit off. After we've knitted that over, we're going to wrap it one more time and knit off again. Now move your number 1 peg to your number 2, and that will become your new number 1 peg. Going to continue wrapping number 2, knitting over, move it to 1, knitting over, wrapping, knitting over again, and move the 1 to number 2. Let's do that again. Wrap number 2, knit over, move 2 to 1, knit over, wrap number 1 again, knit over, move it to 2. You continue doing this all the way around the loom, and then you tie everything off together and weave in the tails, and you will be done with a super stretchy bind off. It's going to be a looser opening than with the regular standard bind off. Thanks for watching my bonus tutorial. Stay tuned and subscribe for more videos on this loom and others. Happy looming!